If you've ever watched an underwater carp fishing video, then you'll know that carp are picking up and ejecting rigs all the time. It's really easy to say, well, I'm not being done because my alarm would tell me if I'm being done. Unfortunately, this is not the case.
Now, if you want to know what's really happening with your rig, one thing you can do is to add a pickup indicator. It's super easy to do, you don't need a load of bits, and you've probably already got exactly what you need in your tackle box. First, let's look at the rig end.
So the first example of a rig that I ever knew about which would actually indicate
whether the carp has picked up your bait or not.
I think it was created by Kevin Nash back in the day, and it's the classic blowback rig, and this is my version of that, tied up with some skin link in 25 pound, little blowback tube there, and yes, absolutely that will indicate whether the carp are getting away with it. So the next one is a multi-rig, and the multi-rig has lots of pluses, one of which is they will tell you whether you've been done. This next rig is a mono D rig. It's a variation on a rig called the IQ2 rig, but instead of having to tie that whipping knot on the shank, which is quite tricky to do, I've just extended the D with a little blowback tube, and it works really well. The other advantage is that the blowback tube acts as an indicator. So with the original blowback rig, it's this blowback tube that is acting as the indicator. On a multi-rig, it's the actual sliding of the loop up and down the shank that acts as the indicator. With the blowback multi, we've got the blowback tube sitting on the loop here, and when that gets pulled up, that's telling us whether we're being done or not. Then with the long D rig that I've made here, it's the blowback tube going on the shank and trapping the loop, so you get a long loop, and then when that gets moved, we know that we've been done. If you're buying ready tied rigs, then the Ronnie, for example, that is not going to give you any indication as to whether you're being done or not. The same with this supple braided PVA bag rig, that's not going to tell us what's going on either. This is another spinner rig on a boom, and that's not going to tell us whether we're being done. This is a claw rig, and that's not going to tell us whether we're being done either. The only one of these ready tied rigs that are going to tell us whether we've been done is this one, because we've got a little bit of silicone on the hair there, and if the carp blows that out, it will move and it will tell us whether we're being done.
So this is a classic example of a rig that uses telltale indication.
This rig here is as it gets cast out. This one at the top has been fished with, and we can clearly see that the blowback tube has been blown out. The D has been elongated massively, and this rig has clearly been ejected.
So the hook was in the lip. I just hold the hook like that to simulate that, and then the rig gets blown out like that, and it's the force on that D has elongated the D, and it's just slid up the blowback tube there. So it's really easy to add a little pickup indicator to your rig without changing the way the rig works. And what it means is this: at the end of a session, say you haven't had a beep or a bang, there's been no shows, and you haven't caught a carp. It's so easy to say, well, the carp weren't there today, the carp weren't hungry today. But if you have a pickup indicator, you wind in, and that indicator tells you that you got picked up and ejected. Okay, you didn't catch a carp, but that's really powerful information. You know the carp were there, they were feeding, and one of them picked up your rig. So the next question is, how do we fix that? Well, I'm going to cover that in detail later, but first I want to show you how to create different pickup indicators at the lead end.
So a traditional inline semi-fixed rig like this is going to isolate us from the truth. It's not going to tell us actually what's going on. So we're going to set this to one side and look at some other options. So this was the first trick inline lead system that I ever created, and all we got here is some rig tubing. We've removed the plastic insert from the inline lead, we've replaced it with a little tail rubber, then we've got this telltale. So this telltale is just the tag end from the main line that's been left long. So all you do is fold the tag end, poke the whole lot up inside the hole until it fits snugly like that, and this is going to tell us if a carp has got away with it. So I've just got a basic double bottom bait rig on here, and carp's going to come along and he's going to feel the weight of lead, and the first thing he's going to do is try and shake it off. So give it a little bonk, and that's off. Now the carp's going to move away. You're going to get a massive amount of indication because the tubing is being pulled through like that. The carp's not going to be able to use the weight of the lead against us because the lead's on the deck and it's just sliding away like that. And what it does is this telltale is popped out, and if we wind that lead back in and the carp has got away with it because there was a problem, the hook was blunt or damaged, or the rig was no good, or you were just unlucky, there was a bit of debris in the way, what you're going to wind in is you're going to wind in that lead and it's going to slide back down there like that, and the telltale is going to be popped out like that. And if you see that and you haven't got a carp attached to the end of your rig, then basically you've been done. The great thing about this simple system that's been working for me for years and for loads of guests and for thousands of people around the world that have watched that video and had a go with this rig is that it tells them whether they've been done. And this is powerful information, and we can use that to refine the business end to convert more pickups. Another variation on this theme that I've been playing with is this system. So again, I've removed the original plastic insert from this inline lead and I've replaced it with this extra long tungsten anti-tangle sleeve, and I use this setup for a solid PVA bag. Now at the moment this is just set up as a pure running rig, so it's very effective, but it's not going to tell us whether the carp have gotten away with it or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that, and I've modified it. I'm fishing on a leadless leader here, so we don't have a tag end from the main line to use in this case. So all I've done, I've just taken some braid and I've done a little uni knot and I've tied some armour link onto the base of the swivel there. So I just fold it up against the anti-tangle sleeve like that, and then poke the whole lot through the inline lead. And what we find is we've just got a very low amount of friction there, but it is securely held in there. Now you might be worried about, oh, this is horrible and sticking out here, but this is designed to go inside a solid PVA bag. So the solid PVA bag is going to be round there like that, and the lead's going to be down the one end. And to be honest, you know, there's only going to be a few mil poking out the top of the PVA bag. It doesn't matter, it's all covered and hidden in bait anyway. And then this works in exactly the same way. Any movement on this end from the carp will pull that out, and if the carp does get away with it because you've got problems at your rig end, when you wind it back in, it will look like that. The telltale will be out, and you know absolutely 100% you've been done. So if at the minute you're fishing with traditional semi-fixed inline leads, then give one of those systems a go. If you fish the towel rubber one, what's going to happen is the fish will get a little bump which sets the hook, and then it's going to move off and convert into a runner. If you choose the anti-tangle sleeve version, it's going to fish more like a running inline lead, but that can work to our advantage. There's no bump effect, there's no shock effect, but if you're fishing for very wily carp that have been fished for a lot and have seen a lot of rigs, then actually by giving them nothing to go on in terms of a bump effect from the lead, it can really work to your advantage, and they won't be able to do you, and you'll get a screaming run, and that's it, you're in happy days. So this is a traditional semi-fixed bolt rig with a lead clip system. I've pushed the tail rubber all the way on in this case, and what's going to happen is that carp's going to pick up this rig, going to feel the weight of the lead, and then he's going to try and do it. And he's going to shake it around and swing it around, and because this is not moving very far, we don't get any indication on the line as to what's going on. You might get a couple of beeps, something like that, but more often than not they are going to get away with it and you're not going to learn anything about it. If you need to use a lead clip, the only time you're going to know whether a carp is getting away with it is by sliding the tail rubber back, just nicking it on, and then carp comes along, feels the weight of the lead, and it's going to give it a shake, dunk, and the lead drops off. If you wind in and there's no carp on the end and it pretty much looks like that and you've got no lead, you know that you've been done. So at the other end of the spectrum from a traditional semi-fixed bolt rig would be a running rig. When a carp picks up that bait, he moves away and that just freely slides along there, you get a massive amount of indication. The lead stays put. The carp can't use the weight of the lead against us. Now, I know lots of you don't believe that running rigs would ever work because there's no force hooking the carp. Well, actually there's a lot of force hooking the carp and they're a very effective way to fish. But what we're talking about is whether we're going to get any indication as to whether the carp are getting away with it. With a pure running rig, we get no indication, because if we wind in and the rig looks like that, then we've got no fish and we've got no clue that we've been done. So that really doesn't tell us anything either. So this is the original system I came up with for swivel leads. So all I've done, we've got a bit of cling on here, we've got a tail rubber, and I've just added some armour link just tied on to the base of the swivel. And all we do is we take that bit of armour link, poke it through the swivel, and we just push the swivel onto the tail rubber like that, and we've got a little telltale system. This has got some kind of grip on there so it stays in place on the cast, and it can be dropped from a bait boat or a rowing boat. And the way this works is carp comes along, picks up the rig, feels the weight of the lead, and he's going to give it a bit of a shake. Bunk, lead slides away, you get a massive amount of indication, and the telltale pops out. So if we wind in and the telltale is exposed like that, then we know that we've been done and we've got a problem at this end that we need to fix. So it's a very simple little lead setup that is quick and cheap and easy to do, and it's very effective. So the next swivel based lead system that I created with a telltale indication was the shock and run. This works great with tubing. So all I've done here, if you haven't watched the video, is I've got a Nash heavy duty lead clip and the matching tail rubber on. I've hacked the leg off, and I've still got the forked pin in place to pin the swivel in there. And then I've just got the tag end of the main line because we're using tubing, and all I do is poke the telltale underneath the ring there, and it fits on really nicely, and it's difficult to get it wrong. It releases really quickly when you pick it up, and just one little bump and it's off. So it's a lovely little system. So whether you're fishing inline leads or you need a swivel based system, there's loads of great options there for you to pick, choose, experiment from with that little selection. So can we have the best of both worlds? Can we have double indication that we're being done from not only the rig side but also the lead system side? Well, here's a couple of classic combinations which do combine all of these things into one simple easy setup. So here I've combined the blowback multi with a little running inline, and we've got the telltale sticking out there. Brilliant setup for a solid PVA bag, and it's going to give us indication that we're being done on the lead system and with the movement of the blowback tube like that. Another classic combination is this heavy duty mono rig with the blowback indicator there, and I've coupled that with the heli sleeve trick running rig. It's very sensitive, this system. It's just strong enough to hold the lead up, dunk, one little shake is off. And of course that would be confirmed because if we do get blown out, that tube will be moved up to the top there like that. So by using a dual system of indication, I'm never left in any doubt. I absolutely know 100%. So what does this all mean? What do we do with the information? If you start fishing with either an indication on the rig or an indication on the lead system or both, and you go out, you fish, and all of a sudden you're basically being done all the time, but rather than not knowing that you're being done because you were fishing traditional bolt rigs, now you know that you're actually being done. Well, basically what it means is that you've got a problem that needs fixing. And the first thing that I would always look at is hooks. What hooks are you using? Are you inspecting them with an eyeglass? Are you hand sharpening your hooks? You might be hand sharpening your hooks and actually making them far worse than they originally were when they came out the packet. Then I look at the rig itself. Are you tying the knotless knot backwards, for example? Are you using a kicker and the kicker is too long and you're actually kind of masking the hook and preventing it from turning over? So I just go through all of these basic things one by one, and I'd strip it down to the real basics as well. You know, if you've got a load of extra bits on your rigs, go simple and by going simple and focusing on the absolute basics, razor sharp hooks, rigs that flip and turn, you really should eliminate being done. So if you try some of these techniques, you might all of a sudden find that you are being done. And rather than being disappointed or frustrated that you are being done, you've got to take the positives from this. It means that you're fishing in the right place at the right time, that carp are actually there. You're just not quite joining up all the dots, getting the details absolutely right to convert those chances, because they are real chances, into a run and a carp on the bank. One thing that's become more apparent to me over the years is the role that the lead system plays in carp fishing. I think the lead system plays a more important role than actually the rig side of it. As water temperature rises, we actually find that carp are harder to catch. Now, it's not because the carp aren't eating, the carp are eating more and more because they need more fuel, but they actually get better at ejecting the rigs. And I'm sure that any system where they're feeling the weight of the lead, they will use that against you. Even some of my trick systems whereby there's just that little bump, if that shock effect is too much, then I've certainly had examples and times myself, and both working with clients as well, whereby the carp are using that against us, and you know, I'm being done. The one thing that I've used to kind of solve that problem is just by switching over to pure running rigs. Still with an indication, of course, but we found that by fishing with pure running rigs with no shock effect whatsoever, or a very, very small shock effect, just enough to kind of hold the telltale indicator in place, that this has really improved the results during the harder times. So if you do want to give my pickup indicator a go, here's something you've got to watch for. You must stop the lead in flight. You can either cast it against a clip, or you can trap the spool with your finger or cup it with your hand. But you must stop that lead travelling in flight before it impacts the water. If you just cast and the lead flies into the water in an uncontrolled fashion, what's going to happen is the force of impact of the water is going to pull on the bait. If you've got some PVA on there as well, it will make it even worse. It's going to pull out the tail rubber and the swivel. It'll look as though you've been done when you wind it in. But I'm going to show you this now so you can see exactly what I mean. If you do this and it's indicating that you're getting done each time, it means you need to either work on your casting technique, or the fit that you've got between the silicone tail rubber and the lead is not quite good enough. It's not going to work for you. I'm very specific about the components that I use. I really like the new Nash leads that they've brought out, because the tail rubber that comes with the lead, you don't have to buy a separate tail rubber, it comes with the lead, and that is perfect for the job. Just nipping that in ever so slightly, very low amount of force, and then you can see it just naturally comes to a stop there. So that is perfectly set. So we're going to cast this in, and I'm just going to fire it into the water. It's going to be a rubbish looking cast, but this is what I want to show. No control, lead smacks in, and I'm going to wind that in and see how it looks. So here we go, we've wound that back in and the telltale has been pulled out. We haven't been done, the lead didn't even hit the bottom, to be honest. If you're stopping the lead in flight and it's happening, then you've got a problem of the fit between that and that. This works absolutely great, so it's very reliable. It's even worse if you put a big PVA stick or a solid bag on there, then you're definitely going to have a problem doing this. So this is just something to watch for if you want to use a pickup indicator, especially if you're using a PVA stick, and the bigger the stick, the more of a problem you're going to have. If you mess up the cast, if you don't hit the clip and the lead just fires into the water and it's got a PVA stick on, then I wouldn't even let the lead hit the bottom. Wind it in and just have another go. It's the best way, because you might get some false indications if you keep on doing this.